Today, we're looking at Diamine's Royal Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Diamine's Royal Blue is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day, I then put it into a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And it's interesting because looking at the ink, I thought it was going to be a true blue, but it's not. On the bottom, we see this very light purple pushing its way up, and then the blue comes in, and we even see bits. If you look at the right side, at the top of that chromatography, you see some teal or turquoise colors. Very, very nice. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. That purple line across the bottom is much darker, much more there. As it pushes up, we see less of the blue and more of the turquoise come through in the chromatography where I let it dry. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it's handling itself very respectably. It does go from being about an extra fine to a fine, but it doesn't blow out and it does not become unreadable, making me feel safe using it as a note taker. Water is reactivating and lifting it off the paper, although slowly. Where the ink was lighter in the swab, we start to see the white of the paper begin to come through. Where it was darker, it's just lightening it. I think water might be enough. However, if it was not, Pen Flush is completely removing it from the paper. We're seeing a lot of the white of the paper come through, making me say that no matter what, if the water doesn't work, that Pen Flush will. 1/3 bleach solution, as would be expected, is completely removing it from the paper, but there's no need to use the 1/3 bleach solution onto this ink. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine's Royal Blue has a viscosity of 1.33, making this an incredibly wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rodya paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine's Royal Blue, despite being so wet, has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, no halo sheen, no shading. It's a nice darker blue. It's not real dark, but it is a nice darker blue. Now, the extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone than the 1.1. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading here. No shading at all with this ink. 11 seconds to dry. The medium is a slightly darker tone than the extra fine, but not quite as dark as the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 16 seconds to dry. Now, when we look at the scrubby of both, we see no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Smear test, you could certainly recover if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. We get no bleeding. We do get ghosting. Tomoe River is a very thin paper, so ghosting is pretty much inevitable. The 1.1 has no... I need to adjust this out. This is why I'm having some framing problems. There we go. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shading at all. Still that very nice dark blue. The extra fine is a slightly lighter tone
slightly lighter. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading, 18 seconds to dry. Now the medium gets to be a darker tone again, about 1 shade lighter, just 1 tone difference lighter than the 1.1. So we do see 3 different tones here. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading, 24 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. In the smear test, you could recover this even on the Tomoe River. Rodya. Now, Rodya gives us no bleeding and no ghosting, which we basically expect. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone, much more in person than on camera. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine and just not as dark as the 1.1. So again, we're seeing 3 different tones on this one depending on the nib. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading, 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. So what happens with this blue if I put it on some different tone paper like the yellow Rodya? Now the yellow Rodya, as expected, gave us no bleeding and no ghosting. So this is a slightly transparent. It is not as saturated in ink because you see the blues turn to this really nice turquoise. Not as much with the 1.1 where it's at its darkest, but we definitely see it happen with the extra fine. It becomes a very nice turquoise here. Same with the medium. So we do see some color changing happening for the yellow background, which, you can expect on a less opaque ink. So the 1.1 had no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade here. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. The medium is a darker tone than the extra fine, and it is not as close. It doesn't get anywhere near being that blue. It stays turquoise. It's just a darker version of the extra fine. So it's not even like that it's alike for the 1.1. These look like different inks. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got no color variation. And a smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. So Limone paper. Limone's had a lot of trouble here. Now, it's had a lot of trouble with a lot of inks. There's a lot of bleed spots, so a lot of spotting, but it is not actually coming through the page. I don't think you could use the back of the paper. It does not touch the paper underneath. But yeah, there's a lot of bleed spots and a lot of halo, or a lot of show through for it. The 1.1 has spread. It has feathering, tiny little feathers all over the writing. This paper does not seem to enjoy liquid inks. It has no halo sheen and no shade. The extra fine is the exact same tone as the 1.1. The extra fine has no spread, but tiny feathers all over it. Like we see in the E, we see it in the K, we see it all over the word over. No halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has the medium has spread, has feathering, again, still feathering all over this writing. There's almost not a spot without some kind of tiny feathering. It doesn't mean that this would stop someone from using it, but there is tiny feathering all over it. No halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both showed us no color variation, and we got none. In a smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Black and red notebooks, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading, 8 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine. It's the same tone that I see with the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. And that is all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Royal Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And what better for Royal Blue than Robert Oster's Royal Red? Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Diamine's Royal Blue? This is a very good basic blue. It easily goes in work environments. That purple doesn't really seem to come through a whole lot in the writing. Maybe you get your moments of it, but it'll pass. You also do get some color and tone variation depending on the flow of the pen you're using or how broad the nib is. It is a very nice blue that you do get some changes depending on your pen. Thanks for watching.